Part 5. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 41. Chapter 41. Let her know the consequences of snatching things from me. At this moment, Xia Ying's cell phone vibrated. Xia Ying took out her mobile phone and saw a text message from Hanzija. After studying in the evening, see you at the old-time cafe. I have something to tell you. Xia Ying looked at the text message with a bitter smile on her lips. Even the content of the text message luring her out has not changed. Xia Menjian still took advantage of Hanzija and used his mobile phone to send text messages to Xia Ying asking to meet. Then Xia Ying was attacked on the way to the meeting place. The old-time cafe is in a very remote place, and almost no one would know about teaching Xia Ying a lesson there, and it was raining so hard today, no one would notice it. Xia Menjian is really thoughtful. However, what is different from the previous life is that at this time in the previous life, Xia Ying was still obsessed with Hanzija. Now, Xia Ying has broken up with Hanzija. Xia Menjian probably thinks that Xia Ying hasn't forgotten Hanzija so quickly. After all, Xia Ying used to be so obsessed with Hanzija. Xia Menjian noticed that Xia Ying had seen the text message, so she glanced at Mu Niankai who was looking in the small mirror. She muttered to herself, "Oh, I know that Sister Xia Ying still likes Senior Hanzija. It's raining so heavily outside, and Sister Xia Ying plans to go to meet Senior Hanzija after studying at night." Dating. Mu Niankai was startled when she heard Xia Menjian's words and looked up at her. "What did you say?" Xia Menjian gave a casual smile. "What I mean is, Sister Niankai, you must have misunderstood Sister Xia Ying. Sister Xia Ying likes Senior Hanzija, and the scandal with Jun Chennai is definitely false. It must be media hype. As for the sudden breakup between Sister Xia Ying and Senior Hanzija, she must have her own reasons, because Sister Xia Ying really likes Senior Hanzija." Mu Niankai frowned, glanced at Xia Ying's back, half squinted her eyes, and said angrily, "Since you like Senior Hanzija, why are you still entangled with Brother Chennai? Why don't you make a statement? To break the rumors? Isn't it just to make herself famous? What a scheming woman. I think she broke up with Senior Hanzija just to cater to the media's hype." Xia Menjian raised her lips and smiled, then pretended to be innocent to defend Xia Ying. "That's not the case, Sister Xia Ying is not such a person. There must be other reasons why Sister Xia Ying and Senior Hanzija broke up. It's definitely not because I want to ride on Jun Chennai's popularity." "What reason could she have?" Mu Niankai said angrily. "A few days ago, she admitted to me that she was with Senior Hanzija, and she broke up just when the scandal with Brother Chennai was spreading. Moreover, the breakup was just breakup. You just told me that it's because Senior Hanzija doesn't like her. Now she's planning to have a private meeting with Senior Hanzija after studying in the evening? This woman is really two-faced. Do you think I'm a fool? Such a person, huh? That's not the case, Sister Xia Ying." Xia Menjian pretended to defend herself, but found that she was unable to defend herself. "By the way, you said she's going on a date with Hanzija next night during her self-study class. Where?" Mu Niankai interrupted Xia Menjian. "Old-time cafe." Xia Menjian hurriedly answered. "Okay." Mu Niankai snorted and muttered in a low voice, "It's time to let that woman know the consequences of robbing me." Xia Menjian chuckled and glanced in Xia Ying's direction unconsciously. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 42. Chapter 42. Xia Ying's counterattack. Xia Ying replied to Hanzija. She could have refused. After all, they had broken up now and there was no need for her to meet him in private anymore. However, Xia Ying felt that since Xia Menjian had put so much thought into it, it would be bad if it was wasted. Since they want to play, she doesn't mind accompanying them to the end. Xia Ying thought of this and smiled lightly. Xia Ying opened the book, and there were still notes left by Yu Lingfeng for her. Yu Lingfeng said he was going to take a test for her, but it seemed like she would have to spend some time memorizing it. Xia Ying suddenly thought of something again and sent Yu Lingfeng a text message. Yu Lingfeng gave Xia Ying his mobile phone number a few days ago, saying that if she had any questions, she could ask him at any time. Yu Lingfeng, it's raining too much today, so don't come over. If you don't understand something, I'll ask you directly online. Yu Lingfeng replied instantly with a simple Xia Ying was just about to put away her phone when suddenly a cold voice came from beside her. I remember, you can't use your phone in class, right? Xia Ying put away her cell phone, looked at Jun Chenai indifferently, glanced at his honey brown hair, and said, I still remember that according to the school rules, you are not allowed to dye your hair. Jun Chenai's face darkened, he couldn't actually talk to her. When it was time for evening self-study, Xia Ying looked out the window at the rain, which was getting heavier and heavier. She told the housekeeper that she would go home later today, so it would be time for her to fight back later. Xia Ying looked back at Xia Menjian. Xia Menjian had long curly brown hair and wore the same bright school uniform as Xia Ying. At night, it's really easy to confuse the two of them if you don't look carefully. Xia Ying couldn't help but chuckle. This was the road paved by Xia Menjian herself. She has been imitating Xia Ying since she entered Xia's house. Xia Ying's hair is naturally brown, and Xia Menjian is actually dyed a color very similar to Xia Ying's. Moreover, she also has long curly hair like Xia Ying. The only difference is that even though she is dressed exactly the same, Xia Ying's temperament is still better than Xia Menjian's. It's like everyone wears school uniforms, but some people just stand out in the crowd. After evening self-study, everyone walked away one after another in the heavy rain. Xia Ying stood at the door of the classroom, looking at the pouring rain outside. Xia Ying couldn't help but sneer, wondering how stupid she was in her last life and how much she loved that scumbag Hanzija to have no IQ at all. Since it was a date, it was in a remote place like the old-time cafe, and it was raining so heavily. Hanzija didn't even come to pick her up or go with her or anything like that. In her last life, she was alone on the road holding an umbrella, dreaming about her first date with Hanzija. As a result, she was beaten black and blue. Xia Ying also really didn't expect that Mu Niankai, who looked so ladylike, could be so dark inside. Xia Ying breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to open her umbrella and walk into the rain, she suddenly felt someone tapping her shoulder. Xia Ying turned around and saw a handsome and indifferent face. It was Jun Chenai. Jun Chenai stared at Xia Ying, frowned, and asked, "It's raining so hard, no one will come to pick you up." Xia Ying was stunned for a moment. "Well, I have something to do, so. But it's raining so hard, you're not safe alone. Where are you going? How about I take you there?" Jun Chenai had an indifferent attitude, but Xia Ying was warmed by him. Perhaps he suffered too much in his previous life, so now Jun Chenai's ordinary actions can make Xia Ying's heart warm. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 43. Chapter 43 Xia Ying's Counterattack. Jun Chenai saw Xia Ying staring at him and didn't answer for a long time. He frowned and said, "Don't get me wrong. It's just a matter of concern between classmates. As I told you, I don't have any thoughts about you." Xia Ying said with a dark face, "I know, but I'm fine. Thank you." After Xia Ying finished speaking, she was about to leave, but was pulled back by Jun Chenai. Xia Ying was speechless and looked back at him. "What do you want to do?" At this time, Mu Niankai and others happened to come over and saw Xia Ying, who was entangled with Jun Chenai. At least in Mu Niankai's view, they were entangled. Jun Chaniai's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Why did you deliberately alienate me? I do not have it. Xia Ying frowned. She didn't deliberately alienate Jun Chaniai. However, maybe it was because Jun Chaniai was used to being favored by others, but when Xia Ying was sitting at the same table with him, she didn't even take the initiative to say a word to him. And just now Xia Ying rejected his kindness again. Maybe these actions, in Jun Chaniai's view, were intentional alienation. Real. Jun Chaniai was still dubious. Xia Ying nodded, thank you for your kindness, but it's time for me to go. Jun Chaniai didn't say anything, but watched Xia Ying walk into the rain alone holding an umbrella. Mu Niankai stood aside and looked at Jun Chaniai, who was staring at Xia Ying. Mu Niankai cast dark eyes at Xia Ying's back, then approached Jun Chaniai with a flattering smile on her face. Brother Chaniai, it's raining heavily today, can I go home with you? Jun Chaniai's face darkened immediately when he heard Mu Niankai's familiar voice. Mu Niankai has been pestering him throughout his childhood, and he is already speechless towards Mu Niankai. Unexpectedly, this girl's ghost is still there, and she can be seen wherever she goes. Jun Chaniai still tried his best to maintain his demeanor and said to her, Brother Li, please send Miss Mu home. Jun Chaniai turned his head and said to a man in a suit behind him, Good. Mu Niankai frowned and looked at Jun Chaniai in confusion. Brother Chaniai, aren't you going home? Jun Chaniai replied calmly, there will be an announcement later. Oh. Mu Niankai let out a long sigh, obviously disappointed. I thought I could take a car home with Jun Chaniai, but I didn't expect that something would go wrong. Mu Niankai sat in her car, and then sent a text message to the group of female gangsters she had hired to teach Xia Ying a lesson, remember to keep in touch with me, and don't forget to take a few photos. The other side replied instantly, I know Sister Niankai, everything is ready, just wait for her to appear. Mu Niankai raised her lips and smiled, feeling very satisfied. Xia Ying deliberately walked slowly, and she also stopped by a comic shop. She knew what Mu Niankai had planned, and this time, she would play with her to the end. Sister N. Xia Ying smiled sweetly at the comic shop manager and said hello. Su Annie, the manager of Annie's comic shop, is Xia Ying's only friend since she was a child. Although she is several years older than Xia Ying likes the sister very much. In the past, she liked to talk to her about unhappy things. Xia Ying has loved reading comics since she was a child. Because she was relatively withdrawn and had few friends since she was a child, she entered the world of comics and has been out of control ever since. Sakura, it's raining so hard, why did you come here? Su-an is a girl with a gentle smile, and her crescent-shaped eyes are very beautiful when she smiles. Remember to vote for recommendation after reading this. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 44. Chapter 44 Xia Ying's Counterattack. Wanted to come over and see if there are any new books. Xia Ying said with a smile. Su Annie smiled at Xia Ying, and then handed her a cup of milk tea. Thank you, Sister N. Xia Ying said sweetly, took the milk tea, then sat on the table and read the latest issue of comics. After a while, Xia Ying lowered her head and looked at the time. It's almost time. Xia Ying stood up and chuckled. After saying goodbye to Su Annie, Xia Ying walked into the rain. Xia Ying continued walking in the direction of the old-time cafe. When she was almost there, Xia Ying hid in a corner and dialed Xia Menjian's number. After a few seconds, Xia Menjian answered the phone. Menjian, hurry up, come and save me. I'm here at the old-time cafe. Come here quickly. Xia Ying gasped, pretending to be scared, pitiful and helpless, and then hung up the phone before waiting for a reply from the other end. Xia Ying concluded that Xia Menjian would come, although the script did not develop in the direction she wanted. But now that Xia Ying has called her for help, Xia Menjian will definitely come over in order to maintain her relationship with Xia Ying and in exchange for Xia Ying's trust. Xia Ying knows her too well. After hanging up the phone, Xia Ying waited silently for Xia Menjian's arrival. There were only dim, unmaintained street lights in the alley, and now it was a rainy night again. Xia Ying could not figure out more and more how stupid she had been in her previous life, so that she would brave the heavy rain at night to go on this unnecessary date. Even if you use your brain a little bit, you will know that this is definitely not simple. Now, the group of female gangsters who had not waited for Xia Ying were impatient. Damn it, is that woman here yet? I'm so annoyed, my fists are already itchy. It is said that that woman has always kept a low profile. How did she offend our sister Nianqi? Who knows, anyway, if you offend sister Nianqi, there will be no good end. That's right, haha. Xia Menjian took a taxi and came here alone. If the Xia family knew that Xia Ying had not come back now because she was beaten by a group of people, the Xia family would definitely arrest those people on the spot and take them to the police station. Now Xia Menjian is not sure whether they are done. Xia Menjian recalled Xia Ying's tone when she called her just now. She must be running away, so if she rushes over at this time, she will probably meet Xia Ying. The beating scene. Xia Menjian held her breath and walked slowly towards the alley. Those people were all girls from society, and she didn't dare to mess with them. It would be okay if only Xia Ying was there, but if they were all still there, Xia Menjian would not dare to go there. However, Xia Menjian could already see the signboard of the old-time cafe, but there was no trace of Xia Ying yet. What happened? Xia Menjian frowned. Didn't Xia Ying say she was here? Ah! Xia Menjian suddenly felt that her vision went dark. Someone put a snakeskin bag over her head, and then a group of people pushed her to the ground and kicked and punched her in turn. At this moment, Xia Ying was watching the scene silently. Xia Menjian, you probably didn't expect that your carefully designed trap would eventually be used on yourself, right? However, Xia Menjian imitated Xia Ying's style everywhere, but she gave those people the chance to make mistakes. They never thought that this girl, who was wearing the same Guangyang school uniform as Xia Ying, had the same long brown curly hair, and was similar in height, was not Xia Ying herself. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 45. Chapter 45. Yu Lingfeng's sudden appearance. Xia Ying clenched her fists when she heard Xia Menjian's scream. Xia Menjian, this is all your fault. Xia Ying saw that it was almost done, so she was ready to stop it. However, just as Xia Ying took a step forward, another figure appeared. Stop! The man's voice was sonorous and powerful, and he stood there dressed in black, looking aloof and uninhibited. His thin face was as perfect as a fine porcelain statue. This person is like standing in a glass window, making people look up to and covet him. Unparalleled and eye-catching. The moment he finished speaking, the group of girls in colorful clothes stopped and turned to look at him. Then, his eyes widened in surprise at this man's perfect appearance. At this moment, they all thought they saw a descending from the sky. Xia Ying also covered her mouth in surprise. It was Yu Lingfeng. However, Xia Ying remembered that Yu Lingfeng did not appear in her previous life. Why did Yu Lingfeng appear in this life? Should you go to the police station and surrender yourself, or should I send you there? Yu Lingfeng's voice was extremely indifferent, without any warmth. His eyes were like a cold pool, making people afraid to look directly into them. The girls couldn't help but be shocked by Yu Lingfeng's huge aura, and for a moment they didn't know what to do. It seems that you want me to send it away. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyes and said coldly. The girls' bodies unconsciously trembled slightly due to fear. They are all little gangsters who fight and make trouble all day long, the kind that young people have fallen into countless times. Therefore, they are not afraid of ordinary people, but this person in front of them is different. As soon as their eyes fall on him, they can't help but tremble. Who is this person? After all, what is your identity? Yu Lingfeng slowly took out his mobile phone, took a photo of the stunned girls, and then sent it to a number. Immediately, Yu Lingfeng dialed the number. "Officer Song, I sent you a photo. A group fight, here at the Old Time Cafe." Yu Lingfeng narrowed his eyes slightly and focused on one of them who was still wearing a school uniform. On girls. That girl was obviously the new blood in this group of little girls. She had just joined and encountered this kind of thing. And she was extremely frightened at the moment. She lowered her head silently and hid behind a girl, her shoulders shaking because of fear. Yu Lingfeng saw the school badge on the school uniform, and then said, "A girl from the 3rd grade of high school." Then, Yu Lingfeng hung up the phone and walked towards Xiamenjian, who was half crouched on the ground. When the group of girls saw this, they thought of running away. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyes and looked at their fleeing figures. Run. Totally impossible. None of the cases that Officer Song intervenes in can slip away. Xia Ying quickly hid again to prevent being seen by the group of people. After they all walked away, Xia Ying walked out silently. At this time, Yu Lingfeng half knelt on the ground and slowly pulled off the snakeskin bag covering Xiamenjian's head. It rained so hard that Xiamenjian's whole body was wet. The rain fell to the ground and splashed on her body. She was now dirty and lonely. Xia Ying noticed that Yu Lingfeng's eyes, which were always cold and expressionless, turned out to be somewhat tender at this moment. His hands were trembling slightly. After opening the snakeskin bag, Xiamenjian looked up at him tremblingly. After Yu Lingfeng saw the face clearly, he frowned. By this time, Xia Ying was slowly walking towards them. Yu Lingfeng looked up and saw Xia Ying, who was in a panic, and frowned in confusion and surprise. Xiao once said that the male protagonist is the bug on the female protagonist's road to rebirth. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 46. Chapter 46, Being Beaten for Xia Ying in Vain. Xia Ying avoided Yu Lingfeng's gaze and walked towards Xiamenjian. Xiamenjian clutched Yu Lingfeng's sleeve tightly, sobbing helplessly and miserably. Xia Ying looked at Xiamenjian at this moment and couldn't help but think of herself in the previous life. Moreover, in the last life, Xia Ying's injuries were far more serious than Xiamenjian's at this moment, and Yu Lingfeng did not appear in the last life. Xia Ying was alone in the heavy rain. Too much rain soaked her mobile phone and it was broken. Xia Ying had to stay outside alone all night, accompanied by the sound of homeless people rummaging through the trash cans in the alley next door. Xia Ying crawled towards the corner desperately, fearing that someone with evil intentions would find her. That night was the longest Xia Ying spent in her previous life. Moreover, at that time, she did not know why she was beaten. It wasn't until later, after a lot of things happened, that she figured it out. The next day, Xiamenjian and Mu Niankai brought a large group of people to see Xia Ying's excitement. Xiamenjian protected Xia Ying and prevented them from laughing and taking pictures. Then, Xiamenjian called Xia Ying to take her to the hospital, and Xia's family members arrived immediately. But there were no cameras in that alley, and even if we investigated, we still wouldn't know who actually killed Xia Ying. Since then, Xia Ying has become more reticent and unwilling to communicate with others. And Xiamenjian was also regarded as a best friend by Xia Ying. But who knew that the best friend who seemed to be the best to her was actually the one who framed her behind her back? Xia Ying squatted down, looking frightened. "What's going on? Menjian, are you okay?" Xiaomenjian glanced sideways at Xia Ying, who was intact, and immediately knew that she had been recognized as Xia Ying. But what happened to the phone call she just made? I was just followed by a fan, so I hid in a corner and didn't dare to move, so I called you. Why are you like this? Xia Ying continued. Xiaomenjian felt her heart collapse after hearing this. There was such a thing, so was she beaten for Xia Ying in vain? However, Xiaomenjian looked at Yu Lingfeng again. Although she was beaten, Yu Lingfeng appeared and Yu Lingfeng saved her. When people are most helpless, they are most likely to have feelings. Xiaomenjian was like this at the moment. When she saw the light again, she saw a nervous Yu Lingfeng for the first time. At that moment, her whole girl's heart melted. She has identified with this person her entire life. Yu Lingfeng dialed 120 and prepared to take Xiaomenjian to the hospital. Xia Ying stood aside and watched Yu Lingfeng's series of actions. She always felt that the way Yu Lingfeng looked at her just now made her a little at a loss. His eyes were so insightful that Xia Ying suddenly felt as if Yu Lingfeng had seen through all her little thoughts. Not long after, Xiaomenjian was sent to the hospital. Now, only Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng were left. Yu Lingfeng stared at Xia Ying blankly. Xia Ying was a little flustered by him and lowered her head. I don't know why, but Xia Ying felt like a child who had done something wrong when Yu Lingfeng stared at her like this. Yu Lingfeng approached Xia Ying, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her under his big umbrella. Xia Ying kept her head down, not daring to look at Yu Lingfeng. Let's take a hot bath first, and then go to the hospital. Yu Lingfeng took Xia Ying's umbrella with one hand and said to her while closing it. Xia Ying nodded. Do you still want to go to the appointment? Xia Ying looked up at him. How did he know? It looks like it's no longer needed. Yu Lingfeng avoided Xia Ying's sight, took her wrist and led her away. Sisengfen refers to extremely fanatical fans of celebrities, and some may even do unexpected things that hurt the celebrities. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 47. Chapter 47 The Birth of a New Star in the Music Industry. Yu Lingfeng, why did you come here suddenly? Xia Ying asked him. Let's not talk about this for now, let's go back first. Yu Lingfeng said calmly. Xia Ying stopped asking and followed Yu Lingfeng obediently back to her home. Xia Chuanhai and Luo Xian rushed to the hospital as soon as they learned about Xiaomenjian. So now, there are only two people, Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng. Xia Ying put down her school bag, went to the bathroom, took a hot bath, changed her clothes and walked out. Yu Lingfeng was still in the living room, and Xia Ying sat aside and looked at him, a little at a loss. Yu Lingfeng approached her. Xia Ying looked at Yu Lingfeng blankly. Yu Lingfeng leaned down slightly and asked her, are you okay? Without. Xia Ying shook her head. As long as it's okay. Yu Lingfeng stood up straight again and sat on another sofa. Yu Lingfeng, you. How do you remember your knowledge? Yu Lingfeng interrupted what Xia Ying was about to say. Xia Ying finally swallowed what she wanted to ask, that's almost it? Want to go to the hospital? Yu Lingfeng asked Xia Ying again. Xia Ying frowned. Xiaomenjian had her own fault. She deliberately wanted to harm herself, but she never thought it would end like this. However, because she is Xiaomenjian's sister on the surface, Xia Ying at least has to go to the hospital to see her first. Xia Ying nodded. Yu Lingfeng stood up immediately, and Xia Ying followed behind him. Xia Ying noticed that Yu Lingfeng's entire expression was a bit complicated and unpredictable. Xia Ying couldn't understand what that expression was, but what Xia Ying was sure of was that Yu Lingfeng had been looking at her silently. Xia Ying was halfway through when Yu Lingfeng suddenly stopped. Xia Ying was lost in thought and without paying attention, bumped into Yu Lingfeng's broad back. Yu Lingfeng turned around and looked at Xia Ying, who was rubbing her forehead. Yu Lingfeng looked at Xia Ying with indifference, and took her hand away. Xia Ying looked at Yu Lingfeng blankly, and Yu Lingfeng stretched out her hand and put it on Xia Ying's forehead. Xia Ying subconsciously took 2 steps back and looked at Yu Lingfeng in confusion. The temperature of Yu Lingfeng's palm was not warm, but rather cool. Wait a minute. Yu Lingfeng suddenly turned around and walked into the house again. Xia Ying stood there and watched Yu Lingfeng's series of actions. After a while, Xia Ying saw Yu Lingfeng walking towards her holding a cup of brown liquid. When he walked in, Xia Ying saw that what Yu Lingfeng was holding should be a cup of Izadi's root. Drink this first, you have a cold. Yu Lingfeng handed the quilt to Xia Ying. Xia Ying is confused, but she has a cold? She just sneezed twice on the way. Moreover, how did Yu Lingfeng judge that she had a cold by touching her forehead? Xia Ying didn't think deeply, took the Izadi's root handed over by Yu Lingfeng, and drank it. Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying went out together. On the way, Xia Ying checked the news on her phone. At this time, news such as the birth of a new star in the singing world attracted Xia Ying's attention. Xia Ying clicked in curiously, and then discovered that the protagonist in it was actually herself, a thorn bird. Following Shadow Traveler, which triggered a craze for folk songs on the internet, Thornbird's new song Genius Dreamer once again stirred up the hip-hop whirlpool in the music world. Xia Ying also noticed that Genius Dreamer has become a popular song on YouTube. Hip-hop music from China has actually been praised by Americans in hip-hop country. This shocked the media and singers, and Thornbird immediately became a popular online singer. It is understood that Hive Entertainment and Junhuang Music are trying to contact Thornbird himself to bring this new singing star under their wing. Recommended votes. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 48. Chapter 48. What kind of peace of mind do you have? Hive Entertainment Company and Junhuang Music Company are the 2 best companies in the music industry. The 2 companies have also been in love with each other, tearing each other apart and making progress. Junhuang Music Company is owned by Jun Chenai and his family, while Xia Ying was an artist at Fengchao Entertainment Company in her previous life. At present, the 2 companies are doing their best to learn everything about Thornbird. Since Xia Ying's consent is not obtained, the website cannot publish Xia Ying's information. Therefore, currently, they can contact Xia Ying only if Xia Ying takes the initiative to find them. The latest Weibo posts of the 2 companies are about the signing conditions of Thornbird, and the conditions offered are similar. However, Xia Ying doesn't want to sign the contract at all now. She just wants to study hard and get admitted to Tiandu University. As for signing a contract or something, she has no intention of doing so. What Xia Ying really wants is to wait until she goes to college to open an entertainment company that specializes in signing talented but unknown online singers. She doesn't want to see those who love music drown their talents because they don't have a platform. This is what Xia Ying really wants to do. And in her last life, Xia Ying did not have a good life at Hive Entertainment Company. There are too many intrigues in the entertainment industry, especially when Xia Ying became famous at a young age and was banned from acting after her first movie appearance. As a result, she attracted the attention of many seniors and faced various difficulties in the company. Xia Ying has had enough of that kind of life, and she naturally doesn't want to take that path again. Xia Ying returned to the web page and looked at her post. Jun Chenai's fans were still making trouble. Fans from both sides were fighting each other and the words were so fierce that Xia Ying couldn't stand it anymore. At the hospital, Xia Ying got out of the car with Yu Lingfeng. Xia Ying followed Yu Lingfeng and stared at the back of his head. She still doesn't understand why Yu Lingfeng appears around her frequently in this life. Is it just because they met in advance? Because of this, Xia Ying became more and more confused about Yu Lingfeng. Because Yu Lingfeng arrived early, Xia Menjian was not seriously injured, but she was extremely frightened and still has lingering fears. Seeing Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng appear, Xia Menjian's entire gaze fell on Yu Lingfeng. Xia Ying could tell that Xia Menjian was already attracted to Yu Lingfeng. "Dad, is Menjian okay?" Xia Ying approached Xia Chuanhai and asked. "It's nothing serious, it's just that the child was frightened," Xia Chuanhai said, stroking Xia Menjian's head. Xia Ying stared at Xia Menjian's dull eyes. The pain Xia Menjian was suffering now was far less than 1/10 of what she suffered in her previous life. At least, she hasn't been seen in this embarrassed state yet. "I have already called the police, Menjian, Dad will not let you be bullied in vain," Xia Chuanhai said to Xia Menjian earnestly. Probably because he felt sorry for Xia Menjian since childhood, and now that Xia Menjian had just come to his side, something like this happened, and he felt even more sorry for her. "Dad, Yu Lingfeng has taken photos of that group of people and handed them over to the police. They will probably be found soon," Xia Ying said, then looked down at Xia Menjian. "I don't know. What are the intentions of those people to be so cruel to our Menjian? What did she do wrong?" Xia Menjian listened to Xia Ying's words, clenched her fists with both hands, gritted her teeth, and held on silently. "Damn it, this Xia Ying is so lucky. The person lying here should be her." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. It's like a new person. Xia Chuanhai listened to Xia Ying's words and looked at Yu Lingfeng, who was expressionless. "Lingfeng, thank you very much this time," Xia Chuanhai continued. "I heard from Menyan that it was you who showed up in time that prevented her from being too seriously injured." "I'm just passing by," Yu Lingfeng said lightly. Xia Menjian looked at Yu Lingfeng with starry eyes. Yu Lingfeng turned his head to avoid Xia Menjian's gaze. Xia Menjian couldn't help but be surprised, and Yu Lingfeng's profile was also incredibly stunning. "How come there is such a beautiful person in this world? He is perfect. By the way, I heard from Xiao Sakura that you are her tutor." Xia Chuanhai asked again. Yu Lingfeng nodded. Xia Ying curled her lips, not listening to what she said. It was obviously Xia Chuanhai who found out that Yu Lingfeng had been coming to Xia's house frequently recently, and then asked her about it. Xia Ying had no choice but to recruit her. "Have you considered going to school?" Yu Lingfeng has never been to school. Xia Chuanhai hopes that Yu Lingfeng can go to school and do what he should do at his age. Integrate into the society instead of staying in your own dark castle all day long. Yu Lingfeng is just like his father, a rare genius with high IQ. His talent should not be buried like this. Yu Lingfeng frowned and shook his head without thinking. Xia Chuanhai was helpless. He was still unwilling. Xia Chuanhai always felt that Yu Lingfeng had some kind of psychological factor, which was why he was so reclusive and unwilling to interact with others, and just wanted to live in his own world. But Yu Lingfeng was unwilling to see a psychiatrist. Xia Chuanhai had tried countless times, but he had rejected them all. Yu Lingfeng was too stubborn, and over time, Xia Chuanhai became unable to deal with him. "Xiao Ying, what did you do today? Why didn't you go home with Menjian after school?" Luo Xian asked. Xia Menjian looked up at Xia Ying. She also wanted to know why it took Xia Ying so long to get to the old-time cafe. What was she doing during that time? "The comics I was following were new, so I went to Sister Anne's comic shop to read them." After Xia Ying finished speaking, she hugged Luo Xian's arm and said coquettishly, "Mom, you don't have to worry about me so much. I'm already old and I will take good care of myself." Luo Xian smiled and touched Xia Ying's head. "You kid, why are you so clingy recently? You are becoming more and more like a child." He. Xia Ying smiled heartlessly. God knows how happy she is to be able to see her mother again, so in this life, she wants to express her love to Luo Xian every day. After Luo Xian passed away in her previous life, Xia Ying regretted entering the entertainment industry countless times. She met her mother less and less frequently, and she often quarreled with her mother because of Hanzige's affairs. In this life, she must protect her mother no matter what. In her previous life, Luo Xian had long realized that Hanzige was not a good person and forced Xia Ying to break up with him. But Xia Ying, who was obsessed with love, could not give up on Hanzige so easily. She loved that scumbag so much that she would not hesitate to break up with her own mother for Hanzige. Now that I think about it, she is really stupid. Her family is definitely the people who love her the most in the world, yet she actually hurts the people who love her the most, over and over again, and allows those who long for her death to succeed. Xia Menjian looked at the loving scene between Xia Ying and Luo Xian, her mother and daughter, and lowered her head, her expression becoming cold. However, Xia Ying just said that she went to a comic shop. She actually chose to read comics first on her date with Hanzige. Could it be that she really didn't like Hanzige that much? Xia Menjian was puzzled, but didn't her feelings for Hanzige change too quickly? It's like a new person. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 50. Chapter 50. You need to study hard now. The rumors on the internet have a bad influence on you. Don't go out alone these days. Besides, it's raining so heavily today. I'm just reading comics, so why insist on today? Luo Xian said angrily. I know, Xia Ying said, by the way, Mom, I also encountered it today. So I called Menjian for help, because I know that if I tell you, you will definitely scold me. I deserve it. It's just that I didn't expect that it would bring this tragedy to Menjian. If you think about it this way, it seems that I am partly responsible for Menjian's beating. I'm sorry, Menjian. Fine. Xia Menjian smiled bitterly and replied to Xia Ying, actually, it has nothing to do with you. By the way, Menjian, why don't you bring the housekeeper or bodyguard with you? Xia Ying asked again, is it possible that you plan to resist the illegitimate meal alone? Xia Menjian was speechless by Xia Ying's question and didn't know how to answer it. Damn it, she thought Xia Ying was being chased by those girls. What if she brought bodyguards or housekeepers with her and the group hadn't left yet? Or what if I happened to see Xia Ying being beaten? Wouldn't that ruin her plan? Who knows what kind of Sesen meal will come out at this time? Xia Ying continued, that's right, Menjian, you may not know much about illegitimate meals. In fact, they are sometimes very scary. I was really scared at the time. Xia Menjian responded softly. You kid, you are still worried about being scolded at this time. Fortunately, you escaped this time. What if something really happened? Luo Xian lectured Xia Ying anxiously and angrily. I know, Mom, I will definitely not go out alone next time. Xia Ying continued. While Xia Ying was talking, Luo Xian noticed that Yu Lingfeng kept glancing at Xia Ying. By the way, Lingfeng, since you are now Xia Ying's tutor, I have to trouble you to teach this girl. This child's academic performance has not been very good, and she talks about getting admitted to Imperial University every day. Luo Xian said helplessly. Xia Ying curled her lips and said, Mom, I'm studying hard now. If you don't believe me, ask Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng nodded indifferently. That's best. Luo Xian smiled. At this time, Xia Ying's stomach growled in an unusual way. Luo Xian covered her mouth and smiled, You kid, haven't you had dinner yet? Xia Ying nodded and said aggrievedly, I just drank a cup of milk tea given by Sister An. Then you and Lingfeng should go back to eat first. Your dad and I will be fine here. Luo Xian said to Xia Ying. Oh well. Xia Ying then turned her head and said to Xia Menjian, Menjian, you have a good rest, I'm leaving first. Well, goodbye, Sakura-chan. Xia Menjian said to Xia Ying with a stiff smile. Then he looked straight at the backs of Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng as they left. As Xia Ying walked in the corridor of the hospital, she couldn't help but think of Xia Menjian again. In her last life, she and her mother were so kind to her. She was an illegitimate daughter, but Luo Xin always treated her as her own. It's because she lost her mother and lived in difficult conditions since she was a child. Even now that she is injured and hospitalized, Luo Xin is willing to stay and take care of her. But Xia Menjian only wanted to frame the mother and daughter, which was really chilling. Hey, hubby, do you think Ling Feng is very kind to Xiao Ying? The way he looks at Xiao Ying is different. After Xiao Ying and Yu Lingfeng left, Luo Xin and Xia Chuanhai started chatting. Thanks to the little cutie Shiki for the reward. End of this chapter.